All right, we're ready to go.
Here we go. Three, two, one. Well, hello, all you folks out there. This is Tommy Joe Lucia. This is No Spin Rodeo, your no BS take on stuff that matters. I'm joined with two of my favorite humans, Kendra Santos, the First Lady of Pro Rodeo Journalism, and the producer of this show, Greg Teagarden. Good morning, Team No Spin. How is everybody today?
Doing good.
I'm great. I was like, is this ladies first? Or go ahead,
Well,
Greg. You're the
it should
nicest.
always be ladies first.
You're
Yeah,
the kindest.
nice work, Greg.
Well,
Nice work.
it was
When I
it was
see
a
No,
you, I know
awkward pause on my
awkward
part. That
pause, and I was like,
yeah.
someone's got to do something now.
well, and you're kind of one of those ladies, Kendra, that you have to be careful because, like, are you one of those ladies that if I open the door for you, you'll look at me and go, "How dare you open the door for me?
I
I'm
love
a
no no
woman."
no. I love having the door open for me. And when you meet my sons, if a woman meets my sons, it makes me so proud. As my dad does, also as my brothers do, as my sons do. They open the door for women, and when they meet a lady, they take their hat off. It's very polite.
Yep.
Manners never go out of style. Absolutely not. I love having the door open for me.
So you can be a strong woman and still let people treat you with respect. That's what I
There's
don't
nothing
understand.
wrong with social grace. What do you mean you don't understand it? Of course, everyone, of course, I want to be treated like a lady and I want to act like a lady too. And you can be a strong lady with an opinion
I,
and who's smart.
I agree with you, but it wasn't. It was about 2 months ago. I was in the airport. I opened the door for a lady, or I stopped, backed up to let a lady go for. She goes, "You don't, you don't have to discriminate against me just because I'm a woman." And I just said, "Ma'am, I was. This is just instinctive. Since I was 3 years old, I take my hat off when I meet a lady. I
Yeah.
I say yes, sir, and no, ma'am, to someone older than me, regardless, and that is instinctive, and I don't care. And so I'm not I'm
I
not
think it's polite. I
I
think
was
it's
asking
polite.
you if you were one
Yeah.
of those strong women that doesn't like that. That's all I was asking.
I think it's fantastic.
Cool. I like that.
Manners. Yeah.
I like that. All right. Well, Greg, you're here Greg's in Texas. He's working here in the Prana shop, which is fantastic to have Greg around for a little bit. And personally, you're kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, you're kind of understanding what a caretaker's role is.
What do you mean by that?
Not you, Greg. I'm talking to
Oh,
Kendra now.
oh,
Oh, yeah, I'm in Texas. My son Taylor is we last week we were in Nashville for him to get his right hip surgery, and so now it's rehab, hard PT, to try to get ready for getting the left hip operated on in June. So
Oh, they're doing both hips.
yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah, when my son got injured and they messed his hip up, he had a broke when he got in a car wreck. Chase broke a leg and screwed up a hip. And what they didn't do, his threshold was pain, but like they didn't take into a fact that one side had to be good. Does that make sense? Because you put all your weight on one or the other. And he refractured his leg because they gave him a walker, right? And he wasn't putting, so he snapped the plate in his leg. And the other doctor was like, I don't know what they were thinking. You can't do this, which makes sense on the, that other hip's got to heal enough so that he doesn't injure both. So that makes sense.
Yep. Yep. It's tough stuff, but I'm really proud of how tough he's being physically, and also, you know, you try being sat down when you make your living, doing this for like a whole year. It's a whole season of no. Anyway, it's I'm very proud of his attitude. So
Is he staying upbeat as he can?
absolutely.
That's
Yep.
hard, I think, because we do take for granted. Well, we do this in our lives, not just with rodeo stars, but isn't it funny how when someone isn't relevant to whatever our world is, how quickly we forget them? It's sad but true.
Well, and I have more injuries to tell people about, coming up, but there is a huge point here about how people disappear Suddenly you don't see him on the Cowboy Channel, but nobody even notices. But anyway, we'll get to more of that later. But I'm proud of already the progress and how hard these guys work, man. In this physical therapy, it hurts, and they grind it out because they know it makes all the difference. So,
Well, and the physical therapy is the key. Like
yep.
every time, and it's worse, I think, than the injury is the forcing yourself to get better. And I am so amazed. Quick little side note: I had some problems with my knee. I went to Dr. Tandy. He gave me these. He sent me to a physical therapist, which I don't, I'm like, okay, fine, I'll go to it. Well, the physical therapist gave me all these what I thought were silly exercises, like this page full of stuff that I looked at, and I was like, and Tandy said, "You're going to think this stuff's silly. Do it." Well, you know how he is. I'm like, "Yes, sir, I'll do it." So I'm in my shop and I'm lifting my leg this way. And I'm like, this is so stupid. 25 reps, 3 times. I don't even feel nothing. I'm not getting stronger. Well, I stayed with it. Knee doesn't hurt. So, what they do is an art. And so we should listen to those therapists because I give them way more kudos than I used to because it worked.
Hey,
So,
don't be fooled. There are more cowboys than you know doing yoga and Pilates these days, and they may or may not mention it publicly, but there's something to it. And by the way, if you go back to Ty Murray, he ended up in the Nippon Kempo Dojo, which is some sort of a gym thing back in the day. And I remember the first time I saw him do it was at Reno, and he used to stick both arms straight out and go and fire his like 1,000 times. And by the time in a few minutes, his arms would be shaking. But firing those muscles, it wasn't about lifting big dumbbells because he wanted to be flexible and strong pound for pound, but not bulky. It was really, really cool. And a lot of people would frown and go, "Oh no, that's not very manly," but it was amazing. And I sat there and tried to do it with him. It'll hurt you. Just firing your fingers. You fire the muscles in your arms. Amazing.
well, just watching like Tim O get ready to ride a bareback horse, people
Yeah.
make fun. He does like
Oh,
he needs 30 minutes
right.
and he needs about a 50 by 50 area.
It's
Like
almost like ballet or something. Yeah, they
it's
do.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Well, let's get rolling. So the way we start out here is with Rodeo News. This is our chance for Kendra to kind of catch us up on the news and how people are doing in their quest for appearance at the Thomas and Mack and a gold buckle. Catch us up on Rodeo News, Kendra.
Okay, well, as usual, mixed bag of everything. But we talk all the time about, um, I guess I was going to start off today with like who's hot. Like there have been a couple people one from each end of the arena that really have jumped out lately, for different reasons. But we talk all the time about roles and slumps in rodeo, and which end of things you're on. So my mentions today for this would be Bulldogger JD Struxness, who won the American in 100,000 and then turned right around and won the branding iron at Rodeo Austin, which is that not kind of a cool, unique prize? The
That
branding
is very
iron.
cool.
Pretty neat.
Very cool.
And so that was cool. And then bull rider Creek Young, who I don't know well personally yet, but he won the 100 grand at the American and then 50,000 that counts at Rodeo Houston. And so the 100,000 is this like amazing bonus in his pocket, but he's got over 100,001 in the world standings. He's number one in the world. So that's about as hot as it gets right now, this early in the season. So, good for those guys. A huge event that's been going on and that's become, well, they call it BFI week now, but the Bob Feist Invitational Team Roping Classic started 47 years ago. It's going on it's this grand marathon of events that has also included like an all-girl roping and a breakaway roping, and it's now going to include a steer roping for the first time. The BFI is at the Lazy E right now, but Saturday night, two-time world champs Caleb Driggers and Junior Nogata, they won their first BFI, and it's like the bucket list that had previously gotten away. They had tried between them 28 times to win this, and they cried. They were so emotional about this win, and they just kept talking about the history and the prestige, and most people know that like Jake Barnes took Junior, into his home when Junior showed up here, this broke kid who only spoke Portuguese, 10 years ago. And, Junior made his first NFR with Jake. He calls Jake dad. Junior lost his dad when he was 5 years old, but now Junior has a little itty bitty boy that he named Jake Nogueira, after his American dad. But anyway, Jake and Clay, they're some of their heroes, had won it way long ago. But for Driggers to say that he was more emotional to win the BFI than when he won his first world championship, that was something. They won 81,000 a man. Anyway, the BFI, for those who aren't familiar, I started working it when I was in college, all the way back. It was in Reno forever, but it's considered like an ultimate cowboy contest. The long score, big, strong Mexican steers that were kind of like old school steers this year again. 6 rounds. It's kind of in a league of its own, and that's where they talk about the prestige and they call it a marathon. But one thing I would mention that I don't think has been barely talked about is that Junior, people, if you see pictures, you'll see that Junior wore glasses / goggles. I'm not sure what you would call them, but anyway, he, in explanation, I don't know how much people thought about earlier this year, Caleb Driggers entered rodeos here and there with different guys, and nobody was really saying anything. It's like Junior's taking a break or whatever, but Junior had sinus surgery in January, and as a cautionary tale, he's now he's wearing the glasses, the goggles, because when he ropes inside, the lights really bother his left eye, and he said wearing those glasses helps him focus when he's roping inside. And it's yet to be determined whether he'll keep wearing them, but for now, when he's indoor, he's doing that. But the cautionary tale part is that he had trouble with his sinuses for years, and long-term sinus spray use wreaked havoc on his sinuses, and now he's had to have it made pretty significant surgery. Which I'll say on that, I had an NFR Bulldogger friend that I've been a forever friend, and he used what in our day a lot of people thought was like the thing to do. He rinsed his mouth with Listerine for years. Same thing like with the sinus sprays, right? And he ended up having to have all this gum surgery because it wrecked his gums because it was so harsh. And so it's just, we're all people. Cowboys are people too. But maybe think twice about using any even over-the-counter medicines can be dangerous if overused. So that's worth it.
Well, I think anything in excess.
Yeah.
So my deal is this, and I see this continually. I don't think God made our bodies to be in excess of anything. And you can say food, right? Anything that you do more than, and that includes chemicals in the body. And I think anything, I mean, you can basically OD on almost anything, including, as far as social media, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so for me, and I remember that kind of being a trait that I kind of picked up from my dad. And that is, I'm not going to, I'm not going to take medicine. Now, antibiotics, you're supposed to finish. My wife says you're supposed to finish them because you're actually screwing up your body if you don't. But, I was always taught you don't take the pain pills
Right.
if you don't have to.
Right.
You don't finish the antibiotic. And, so anyway, I'm sorry,
No,
keep going. But I think anything you do in excess, if it's snorting sinus stuff or eating donuts, is going to have an unhealthy consequence.
Johnny Jones, the Hall of Fame steer wrestler, my dear old friend, he always says everything in moderation,
I agree.
Fair enough. Worth a mention, the reserve champs of the BFI were Clay Smith and Colby Payne. And if everybody will remember, Colby Payne had a really rocky fall. He was decided that he was in the NFR, and then he was, removed from the NFR, and it was, I don't know him well, but I wish him well, because I don't care who you are. That had to be very, very hard to be in, out, and everything else of your first NFR. A couple of kids, Ketch Kelton, I think I talked about him on the last podcast, but this kid's 18. He's the son of NFSR and NFR team ripper um, Chance Kelton, and he's 18. And this kid has been so freaking hot. And he and Denton Dunning, they just won third roping against the big dogs at the BFI. But these two kids, Ketch just won his second straight junior Ironman that's held in conjunction with the timed event at the Lazy E. They won the junior BFI. They won the junior Patriot. Then they win third at the big BFI. Like, heads up, they're coming. So, and cool of note, I think, is that Ketch has done a lot of this winning on his big sister Kenzie's Palomino head horse. They both rode this horse at the BFI, which is, these mammoth conditions. But big sister Kenzie just won back-to-back BFI ladies championship this week too, riding that same head horse. And she won that with Whitney DeSalvo. Whitney DeSalvo has a special spot in my heart. I believe she's still the only number 8 heeler, the only number 8 numbered woman roper in the world. And I first started watching Whitney DeSalvo when I was at the junior high national finals in Gallup, New Mexico with my sons. And this little girl with, the braids flopping everywhere from Arkansas, she was a little badass in the breakaway back when she was in junior high. She has gone on, to be a number 8 is out of this world, and she's an extraordinary roper. Anyway, super cool that she just, behind that same head horse, and that same head horse, my understanding is was an oops from their breeding program, is maybe not even registered or anything, but the Keltons raised this horse, and this horse is priceless to them now. But anyway, before we leave the BFI, the Ricky Green Fast Time Award was won by reigning world champs Tyler Wade and Wesley Thorpe. They had the only 4-second roping run of the whole roping in round 5. And Ricky Green, for those who don't remember him, he was the Crossfire King back in the day, in the 70s and 80s. And he had this big black horse he called Cowboy, and he'd throw over the neck. And it was just crazy. People from both ends of the arena would run over, because you never knew he wasn't known for his consistency. He was known to be wild. And so I think Ricky died of cancer a few years ago, and I think he would be so proud. T. Wade is this fearless little badass, and Wesley, and he would be so proud of that. And to have this, Ricky also as a past champ at the BFI in '88, he won it with Mark Arnold. Mark Arnold's also gone, but they called him Pickles. He was from Arizona, Ricky from California. But anyway, okay, last thing before we leave the BFI is that Jake Cooper Clay, which, think about his name and what his parents were going for with Jake and Clay, Jake Cooper Clay, that's kind of a tongue twister with the Barnes and O'Brien Cooper fans. But Jake Clay, who won the 22 BFI with Billy Jack Sabins, he won head horse with his horse Louie, head horse of the BFI. And Trey Yates on Sugar Daddy won the heel horse of the BFI award. And between the two of them, they now have 5, horse of the BFI awards. And this roping is all about the horsepower, because you cannot shoot the gap with only using your rope at this roping with the conditions.
Who decides how do they?
I don't know who the
winning?
judges are, but it's always been secret, secret
judges?
ballot. Yeah. So, but the thing that's cool, Jay Cooper Clay, his rise here lately, he's had 3 head horse of the BFI. Trey's had 2, and then Trey's dad had 2 head horse awards there and a heel horse award there. It's the Yateses obviously are known for their horses, and that's a perfect segue to say JD Yates is getting inducted into the American Quarter Horse Hall of Fame this fall. So cool. Here he's a rodeo guy, but like, think about what he's done in rodeo. Okay, youngest NFR qualifier of all time at 15 with his dad Dick, and still will always be the youngest if it remains 18 and over, right? And 21 times he's roped at the NFR, 21 times as both a heeler and a header, 13 of them, I believe, with his dad. And he went to the national final steer roping 11 times, 47 AQHA World Championships. I mean, this is nuts. My favorite Yates stat, I think, is 1984. Dick, Kelly, and JD became the first and I believe only father, son, daughter trio at the NFR the same year. That was so special. But the Yateses are so known for their horses. So to see him recognized in the AQHA Hall of Fame is pretty
cool.
darn cool. And honorable mention, I think we've mentioned it maybe once before, but the Bull Riding Hall of Fame is apparently May 18th, Billy Bob's Texas, sold out. It's the 10th annual. I feel like we mentioned this. The class is pretty darn star-studded. You want me to zip through the names?
Yeah, zip
Okay.
through the names. Who decides who decides who gets
I
on
don't
that
know
list?
how the Bull Riding Hall of Fame, all the halls of fame, like Colorado Springs has a selection committee, Oklahoma City has a board that puts people on the ballot, and anyone who's a member can vote. They're all a little bit different, and I don't know the Bull Riding Hall of Fame, but this is the 10th class. So Chad Berger, stock contractor, Ricky Bolin, Roy Carter, Pete Gay, J.W. Hart, Gene Lida, Cody Alostro, J.B. Mooney, Frank Newsom, Johnny Schneider, and Sweet Pros Bruiser. So
Cool. Those are cool names. Got a bullfighter in there and a bull in there.
yeah,
and-
diversity.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
Okay, can we zip through some get well wishes for our rodeo family peeps? Because there are some, it's like, I know the list. It's an ongoing. There's always people that are hurt, but it's like, I ran into Kai Hamilton at physical therapy yesterday, when I went with Taylor to physical therapy. But it was like a time travel, because you go into this physical therapy place, and this guy Brad Bettis he worked on. I look and he's like, oh, he worked on Troy Dunn, and then here walks in Kai Hamilton, an Aussie from a different generation, and this is a guy who worked on the likes of Jim Sharp, Ty Murray, Cody Ohl, and when we got in there, he's like, I was told to give you guys special treatment. Like my friends, Cody Ohl had texted him, for example, and said, give this guy extra. So instead of an hour, it's he's spending 2 hours with Taylor or whatever. But this is a guy who's in the right profession. I feel so strongly about people in the medical profession and like teachers. You're in the right profession if your heart's in it, right? Like when people are just going through the motions, it's like, how can you be a teacher or a physical therapist if helping people doesn't like mean everything to you? And so, this guy's like, hey, if you want to come in more times a week, I won't even charge you, whatever. It's like, this guy's, he's following his calling, right? Is how I feel about it. But anyway, for those unaware, Kai Hamilton, he suffered a labrum tear. He dislocated his shoulder at Denver in January. That's when he first hurt it. And then he dislocated it again in Fort Worth, which, as we all know by now, once your shoulder starts dislocating, it happens easier all the time. So Tandy Freeman did the surgery in Dallas February 21st, and told him 6 months, which is standard for a shoulder. Kai told me he'll be back the first part of July, and so I kind of got a kick out of Kai's math, and Tandy's math are not quite the same, right? Because Tandy's math would be August 21st, and Kai's saying July 1st, which his traveling partner Stetson Wright is really still hoping to get back in Reno by Reno in June, which is, about the third week of June. So they're hoping to get the band back together um, this summer. I'm betting on Kai because I watched him do his PT yesterday, and he's he's getting it. He's all in, of course, and
He's Australian. Like, that's not fair. Those guys come with a whole separate thread of determination and tough. Like they do. They wire them
isn't
differently
it
on that
something
island.
I'll never
So
forget? I don't remember if it was about 97, 98, and Troy Dunn had wrapped up the PBR world title. And I was right there outside the gate. And in the first round of the PBR finals, he dislocates his hip. And we're all like crying for him. And he's just like, hey, mate, it's all good, mate. And I'm like, what? We're dying here. And he's just puffing on a cigarette, like it'll be fine. Um, Anyway, so I, um, yeah, I will also mention Tristan Parker is going to be noticeably absent. Like Kai just wins his first gold buckle, which we all know with all this, there was so much medical controversy over him finishing the finals and all that. Um, Tristan Parker just made his first NFR. He was last year's Rookie of the Year bull rider. Um, and now he's out with a torn rotator cuff and labrum in his his right arm. Um, which Tristan's injuries go back to Puyallup last fall up in Washington. And he got slammed, and then he broke 3 ribs, and then he took 2 months off before the NFR. But his shoulder did bother him and impact his riding at the NFR. So he is about to have surgery April 10th. Tandy Freeman's doing that also, and he's expected to be out a good 6 months after that. So again, we're looking at somebody being out for the year. Completely unrelated but relevant. NFR Zero, so Tristan Martin just had a surgery that most people have never heard of. It's to remove a cholesteatoma in his ear. So he's out for a couple months, but I am familiar with this surgery because my son Lane had it, and they cut down the side of your head back behind your ear, and they remove this benign. It's disgusting. I have the same scar, by the way. Lovely, but nobody looks back there. So, but it's like a benign cyst or mass or whatever you want to call it that's growing inside of your eardrum and into your middle ear. And what I know about, like, I'm really happy that Tristan, this typically is people like my son Lane, like Tristan also, who's been in touch because he's wanted to talk to Lane, about, where do we go from here, what it's like after the surgery, whatever. But this is like one of those no BS deals that is like, if you stay on top of it, it's, treatable, but it's no BS because you think, oh, it's just in your ear. But your ear, all that happens in the inside of your ear is very close to your brain. And you have to keep this stuff taken care of because otherwise, if you don't, it can eat through its way, and it can be very, very serious. So anyway, the surgeon also replaced Tristan's hearing bones on that left side with titanium. So thank God for modern medicine. He only thinks he'll be out a couple months. But again, these guys, they disappear, and nobody knows, nobody even thinks about, somebody's out for 2 months. Have you even thought about where's Tristan Martin? Where's Tristan Parker? And then all of a sudden they show back up. But it's like
right.
last year, Cash Robb, who was the Rookie of the Year last year, traveling with Tyler Wagasback, and all of a sudden, like, he's on the brink. He's in the top 20. Looks like he's on the verge of his first NFR, and then he goes missing. Did anybody even notice, like, and he was out for months having major knee surgery. Now he's back. But, like, our world goes on, but those guys, when you get sat down, they disappear. And if you follow them around and what it's really like, not to mention if you're not competing and winning, you're not making any money. So there's a whole mental aspect here,
Yeah, which we addressed earlier, and I think that, but it's sad in our world as we all, not just in the rodeo standings, but out of sight, out of mind. It's amazing how fast someone, like I said, becomes irrelevant in our own lives when it's not pertinent to our own lives, and that's just a knock on humanity. we get so self-involved. And I think there's some compassion missing in that. I've got a couple rodeo news notes that I like to try to throw in. Oh no! So I'm
That's
supposed
the
to.
most irritating ringtone I've ever
It's a
heard.
bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, you can hear that. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to turn that off. Anyway, so it's reported Sage Steele Kimsey
Yes.
is returning to Sioux Falls. I think the Carolina Cowboys and the teams deals, they protected him, which indicated to me that his injuries, his recovery was going good. So good luck to Sage. Hope he comes back and kicks their butt. I like to see the PRCA guys go in there and prove themselves, which I think is fantastic. I'm glad with Sage, that's a whole nother conversation of him kind of making a life change in that. And, he's currently 34th. It'll be interesting. And I didn't do the math, but it'll be interesting. Those of us that kind of watch PBR, he's got a month to get to the finals. And I bet you that's on his mind. And I would assume, I'm pretty sure it's possible with the way the points are structured, that he could get from 34th to the top 15. So keep an eye on that. This is kind of old news, but I have to shout out. I thought it was great. Made me smile to see Jackie Crawford win Houston. She's a good human. And the interesting thing was, in perusing that, her rope bag left town before she roped in the final. She had to borrow a rope, which I thought was interesting. She got it from Danielle Lohman, which I think is even more interesting. They happen to use the same rope, and she goes out there and wins it with not a stunning breakaway run from a time perspective. I think it was like 3-7 or something. But shout out to her. And then on an injury update, I do want to shout out to Rusty Bradbury, who works with the Piranha team. He went in for surgery. He had evidently lots of bone spurs removed out of his neck. They come in through the front of the neck, going back. He's going to be out for 6 or 8 weeks. So keep Rusty in your prayers. The surgery went well. The doctor said it was a mess in there. And, it's funny. Any of us rodeo people, whether you're a roper or a bronc rider or whether you're a contractor in this business, it's a tough life. And there's a lot of, you don't hear very many times a doctor going, well, I went in there and it was surprisingly good. Typically it's, I went in there and it was a mess. Everything was wrong that we didn't think so. Hopefully Rusty's arm doesn't go numb, and the pain that he's dealt with, he can get off the Advil and get better. So shout out to Rusty. I hope he gets better. So that's my injury update on in my world, and a couple rodeo notes that I thought were interesting. The only other one is John Crimber. John Crimber, Paulo Crimber's son. He's been a little phenom in riding bulls forever. Like, he's started young. He's better than his dad. Sorry, Paulo. He can ride, and he's second in the world now. And you better watch out, because if he has the chance to be the next thing, right? As young as he is, he gets off. There's things that I look at. How do they get off? Do they get off like Ty, where, there's a plan for how they get off? Because there's a happy balance between hanging on for the last second and then crushing your shoulder, right? Or getting off when it's the right time to get off because you need to ride again. He gets off well. He rides well. He rides smart. Young little phenom, second in the world. Watch out, people. If you pay attention to the PBR, this Crimber
For
kid.
sure. Is he only like 18 or 19 years old?
He's like 18, yeah. And he's been riding. Like, I know there was guys telling me, hey, have you seen Crimber's boy and at the stockyards? And, and he just went out and rode, and he worked his way up. And, the things that are interesting, which I always look at in these new young guys, and this, Kendra, Greg has seen this. It's one thing to have the physical talent, right? Which he has. It's also one thing to have the fundamentals, which Cody Lambert, all these guys preach. It's another thing to have the heart, and I'm not saying that he doesn't, but the heart, when things don't go bad, when you hit the downswing, can you go one ride at a time, right? Can you let go of the slump. And then the second thing is, handling fame. Like there's all these things that have to balance out for what I call for you to become a legacy type guy. And we can tell that when they prove it, right? Which will be 5 years, 6 years, 8 years from now, right? We'll prove it. He's definitely a young phenom. And I'm not ready to crown him the next bull riding sensation. But you better
He
watch
has all the
out.
tools.
He's a
And the
real
first
deal.
time I saw him ride was 2 or 3 years ago at a junior rodeo at the Lazy E. And, you could kind of see this coming. He's had, Paulo is deeply submerged on the inside of the PBR. So, like, John has had, like, if you were going to build a bull rider, he has had every, you know, I don't know, every advantage or whatever. Like, he's been he's been brought along like as correctly and perfectly. Some people have this or that going for them or whatever, like you said, but like every Paulo is his dad, and he's also managing his son. And what looks really cool to me, like this kid is having fun and is a really nice, happy kid, which is really nice to see too. Like he's not doing it to fulfill his dad's dreams. He digs it, he loves it, and he's having a
Right.
blast. And that's fun to see. Like there's nothing he'd rather be doing right now. That's really cool.
Agreed.
Can I
All
can I
right.
stop us here for a second?
Yep.
Okay, I'm seeing something weird on the record, and is on your screen when you talk, Tommy, do you see your microphone show up?
Mic check 1, 2. Yeah, it has the little thing down there.
But is it showing like a meter going up and down, or do you not see that?
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because I'm not seeing that on this end. It's still saying it's recording, but I'm not seeing your levels at all.
Yeah, I think it's definitely recording audio. It
Okay.
said, yeah, it's showing a meter, so it's going to be on there on the download.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's it for rodeo news. Now, if everybody knows, we like to go into what we call point of view, and so this one's interesting. I'm going to kick it off and then let it go. But what I think will kick off this point of view. So the point of view that I'd like to discuss that we talked about today is the impact of social media as it relates to creating drama from misinformation. And what kind of spurred this, and I'm not, we'll get into the facts of this particular post, but, I was browsing through. Here's the deal. I really like Marketplace on social media. I don't live on it. I'll scroll through it. I love Marketplace because everybody loves buying something for half price until you have to go through the motions of finding it and buying it and meeting up and all of that stuff. But what spurred this was the 27-year-old nephew of actor Mo Brings Plenty, the post of Cole Brings Plenty being missing, right? That caught up, and of course, you're like, oh my goodness. And then my mind started trailing into kind of some of the Yellowstone stuff that kind of touched on. And I think there's actually groups out there about indigenous people being missing, kind of falling through the cracks, it not being noted. And so that's kind of where my mind went on that. And then I kind of dug into it a little more, and then I see that the Lawrence police have submitted an affidavit to, he's a suspect in some kind of domestic dispute right prior to him missing. So, have either one of you looked in, saw this or looked into this? But my point on this is, and we can get into the details of this missing person, but I'd like to talk a little bit about what causes this misinformation and how this social media thing goes, because it happens in rodeo all the time, right? And so, but before we jump off of Cole, Kendra, do you have any secret sauce in that story, or anything to bring to light on
Well,
that particular story
okay,
before
so
we
first of
talk
all, to
about,
me,
you know,
okay, there's no demographic was more uh, that was provided a greater following to Yellowstone than rodeo people. Okay, I don't know a single person who didn't follow Yellowstone. Um, the Brings Plenty families tie to rodeo. Of course, Cole's uncle Mo Brings Plenty has been, a lifelong friend of rodeo. And I know it's not like he's a close personal friend, but whenever Oat and I see him, he talks about being a kid, he loved Oat's dad, Buster, listening to his stories and stuff. And he's really, the person you see on TV, it he really seems to be genuinely that person. Um, and so and just the other day at the American, in the opening ceremonies, Mo came in and did like a native prayer. It was like it gave us goosebumps. It was really cool. So for me, that is how I found out about the story, and I did post a picture of Cole Brings Plenty, and I next to a picture of Mo, because they resemble each other so strongly. So for me, the
right.
point is that this young man's missing since Easter Sunday. And so what seems to be the facts in the matter is that there was some sort of a domestic dispute, and then his 2005 white Ford Explorer was last seen, going south out of Lawrence, Kansas on US Highway 59. But here's what, as statement of fact, and I will also say on a personal note that it's my understanding that Cole lived with his Uncle Mo. Um, anyway, that they don't, as a matter of fact, know that it was Cole behind the wheel with his vehicle leaving. That's according to Uncle Mo's post. Like, that is not a matter of fact. My point in posting something, and I cannot imagine the people that have come forth with so much hate and judgment. We are not the judge and jury here. This young man's missing. His father, Joseph Brings Plenty Sr., also posted the fact that the night before this happened, Mo's braids. Um, I don't know if that's lifelong hair growth, but I know it's a big part of who they are. As Native Americans. Cole had the same long braids. His father posted that the night before, somebody like in a bar cut Cole's braids off. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I wasn't there. Whether Cole is dead or alive, running away from trouble, running to trouble, trying to keep safe, none of us knows that. So what's absolutely horrifying to me is that people, I mean, we've all watched enough Yellowstone episodes to know he could be in major trouble. He could have been abducted. Maybe he did do something wrong. Maybe we've seen episodes. I mean, come on. Beth Dutton, we don't even have to go to Beth Dutton. There are people who might accuse someone of something that maybe he did it, maybe he didn't. I don't know. But the bottom line is he's a missing person. And even his own family is saying he needs to be found. And let's keep all the judgment and all these accusations for people who were not there out of it. He needs to be found, and if he did do something wrong, he will be held accountable, but he needs to be found first. That's my only thing. And the hate spewed. Social media has made me, I block people right and left anymore, because the hate of people who don't know anything about what they're talking about is like, that's the part of social media. Anybody can state something as a matter of fact. You can do whatever you want, and there's no rules. And that is really disturbing to me as a journalist. Like,
Well, I agree. The thing about it listen, I stated fact. He's a suspect. Okay. What we do in social media is pronounce people guilty by narrative, which I don't agree with. The
Yep.
fact is he's a suspect in this. That how that plays into it. Now, I agree with you, and I'm not. The fact
Yes.
that he's missing, he should be found. Okay, and we all never like it when um, it's the same thing as pleading the fifth. Someone pleads the fifth, you typically go they're guilty. Well, usually their attorney is saying whether they're guilty or not, plead the fifth, because if you say something in error, they're going to use it to falsely convict you. But when I see someone plead the fifth, I'm like, well, that means that they did it and they just don't want to talk. It's the same thing. We all create our own narratives. But on the social media side, and I'm interested in here's the thing. So I think, and this is what you said, Kendra. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to repeat you, but you're saying that, boy, it's terrible. Social media is bad because of the spew, which I agree with, all of the hate, all of the stuff. But what causes? So I consider that misinformation, and to me, and I'm not a technical term guy on social media, but anymore, doing a little history. When I was a kid, the news that we watched on TV, we believed because somehow in our mind, it seemed like a public service announcement, right? It didn't seem like news on TV was for profit in my mind, right? If they said it on the news, you could believe it. You went to the water cooler and you said, this happened, and it was true. Well, then the internet comes along and starts putting out content with no restrictions, and the traditional media starts losing money because it's all about money. So then all of a sudden, the news becomes more op ed and people's opinions and less facts. And now it feels like us older people like me, you can't believe anything. Like you don't even know what to believe. And then you've got the real driver here, which I think is interesting. So, how many of us have said, wow, I talked about a turkey sandwich on my phone and the government's listening to me because the next thing I know, up pops Subway's turkey sandwich of the day. So, a couple things to add to that. I was in a meeting in marketing for the Utah Days of 47 Rodeo, and the social media agency that I was working for, the guy sitting across the table from me is about my age. And he said, if I tell you everything about how social media works, it will scare the underwear off of you, how much it knows. And I said, yeah, they're listening to me. And he goes, no, they're not listening to you, but they are. Every keystroke, everything you touch, everything you do on your phone is recorded, right? And then AI, in a smaller sense, now is getting powerful, is collating all that data. So I did some quick research with that, which I thought was really interesting. So there's a term called echo chambers. Greg, you comment because this is kind of down your deal, but the algorithms are what drives echo chambers. So algorithms are what you do, right? They collate all that data, and the algorithm's job is to keep you online, right? Keep you engaged as long as you can. That's what they want you to do. Okay, that makes sense. So the longer they keep you on, the algorithm uses the data about you. It gets smarter about what you like, and then it starts feeding you the content you like, right? So you stay online longer. And so, like on the turkey sandwich, it might be that earlier that evening, and I don't even remember it, right? I stopped and looked at a really cool turkey sandwich online, and it was later in the day that I got hungry for a turkey sandwich, and it popped up, and I thought it heard me. And so there's that function of social media. Bear with me because you guys know I go the long way. There's that function. But then there's this human quality that seems worse in today's society than I've ever seen it. And that's um, this hedonic kind of mindset, this mindset of We want to believe what makes us reaffirm what we believe. Let me say that again. We want someone to tell us that what we think is right, correct? That it's the right way and that everybody else is wrong. That plays right into these algorithms. So from the political side to all of this, right? You basically tell it what you want it to tell you, and that confirms your position, which can be completely false, right? But you got all this data that the internet told you that confirms that. COVID started this. There was more misinformation in and around COVID, and I don't want to get into that argument with you three about whether or not you take tapeworm medicine and it fixes. All that's good. If it works for you, do it. Okay, but there was so much misinformation. It drives me nuts. These young women out there now that are not vaccinating their kids at all. No vaccines. Well, let me tell you how that's going to work. If enough of you do that, we're going to be dealing with measles again. All this stuff that we got rid of, we're going to be dealing. And I'm glad you found it on social media and that your kid's not going to get sick. Well, the reason your kid's probably not going to get sick is because everybody's been taking vaccines and the virus ain't out there. But you're reaffirming that vaccines are bad because that's what you're tracking on social media, and we just keep feeding that. So I'm going to take a break here. I'm interested in Greg and Kendra's take on all that junk I just said.
Well, I think social media has become a huge part of society, and I think we take it and give it more respect than it actually deserves. So going back to your algorithms, what I've heard and what I've seen is that those algorithms know you better than you do. That's why you do see the turkey sandwich pop up in your Instagram feed. And it's just, they know what you're thinking, and they have more information on you than you could ever imagine. And it's actually kind of scary. And some of the stuff they do, I heard recently that Meta was tracking stuff outside of their, even if you weren't on Facebook or Instagram, they still had ways to know what you were doing on your phone and where you are and stuff like that. So and the fact is that nobody really understands the technology behind it. Like a normal person doesn't really worry about how their phone works and how the networking and the data collection works. They just trust that social media is doing good for them. And actually it can be, it's giving you what you want to hear and see, and like you said, confirming your beliefs and everything, even though they could be completely wrong, because a lot of that stuff is just people pounding their thumbs onto the keyboard and reacting to different things and not doing due diligence and finding out the facts of the, whatever they're typing about. And with the whole press thing, it's hard to believe, a lot of these news organizations, because they are so skewed one way or the other, and even like some just like make up stuff, and or try to make correlations between things that you really can't check to see if it's fact or not. It's just, conspiracies and stuff like that. It's really unfortunate that we have become a society that can't agree on facts. So,
yeah.
It's that simple,
because you don't know what fact you don't. Where's the fact bucket? Right? They say fact check it, and you Google it. The same fact has 3 different conflicting facts.
There was a story about this new push, like the anti-diet movement, right? There was a lot of people that came out, and I think it's been a couple years, about how people were like kind of giving up on diets and going back and just eating but they were trying to, do a positive thing. And what happened is social media took it over. Your big food companies kind of jumped on the bandwagon, said, hey, yeah, diets are bad. Here, come eat the, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. It's good for you, and it's that kind of thing. And this world has kind of become like a crazy mixed up pot of, whatever you think is right could be right.
Well, you're sitting there eating your 3 bowls of Cinnamon Toast And your wife says, what are you doing? This stuff's good for me.
Yeah.
It's very healthy. I can eat as much Cinnamon Toast Crunch as I want because I like it.
Yep. And somebody told you it was okay to like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Kendra, I have a question. I'll put you on the spot. So you're in journalism. The goal for you from a business perspective is to accumulate more readers. Yes or no? From a
Social
business
media
perspective.
is a moot point on that because I don't get paid. I've never made a dime off of social media. So when I say Cole Brings Plenty is missing, and I state a paragraph of the facts as we know them to try to help find him, and 5,000 people share that, I don't get any money from that. I don't get any jollies from that. That's like me wanting to do the right thing. So I will say this on all of this conversation. Um, all those years ago when I went to journalism school, I mean, the point is we're supposed to state the facts. And if there's two sides or three sides or four sides to a story, we're supposed to state that. And this is America, and everyone's entitled to an opinion. You state the facts. I stated the facts about Cole Brings Plenty. Here's what we know. Here's when he went missing. Here's where he went missing. He needs to be found. Whether he's in trouble, not in trouble, whatever, it's secondary to finding him. So there's that. And then you have two
Agreed.
sides. So there's no financial gain to me to do that, but I would like to help find a missing person. So when I write a story for a magazine, the cover story about Cody Johnson for the Quarter Horse Journal, for example, recently, the more people who see that across their, social platforms, website, magazine, the better, because this is a cool story. And I want the more people. I don't get paid depending how many people react to it on social media or anything. I get paid. Here's X, what we're going to pay you to write this story. That's it. So
Yes, you do, indirectly, because if you maintain journalistic credibility and you have followers, that puts you in demand for these
absolutely no,
publications
but I
who
feel
want you
like
to
I've
write for
earned
them.
my credibility over my lifetime. You cannot put you can't put a gun to my head to make me say
I'm not
something
arguing
that's
that.
not true for any amount of money. So, which is, this podcast is pretty good proof of that. We're working for free to try to do the right thing here. So, yes, when there's go ahead.
Have you ever wrote an article on something you completely that was unpopular, you completely disagreed with, to bring out the facts? Like, so let me give you an example. I'm not particularly, I'm not a Democrat, and I don't want to get into politics. I'm just not. I don't believe in the economic structure because I studied politics in college. I don't believe that growth comes from the bottom up. That's just my political or my economic side of how I think things work. However, if here's what irritates me: if Joe Biden or the current White House does something good, now I'll admittedly say I haven't seen a whole lot of that, but it doesn't really matter. If they do something good, it should be reported fairly. And now, like, I don't even watch Fox News because what I'm noticing is that, again, they're feeding out what they think their viewers want to hear. And I legitimately want to know the truth. Like I tell people all the time, and I learned this in debate. So I was in debate in college. Well, you know what they first teach you in debate? To understand everybody's argument. Not to say whether it's right or wrong, because that doesn't matter. You still need to understand their arguments. And my family members get mad because I debate them on everything, because that's instinctive for me. I do it here on this podcast. And that is, well, have you looked at the other side of the Rubik's Cube? That doesn't mean that it's right, but you should know all the angles and then collate your position on that. And we don't do that. Not we. A lot of us don't do that anymore. We take in what affirms what we believe, and we say, see,
Yeah.
I told you. but I just saw it on social media. You can't eat yellow tomatoes. It makes you
Yeah.
grow a sixth toe or
Yeah.
whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's all, I mean, and on the politics side, I stay away from politics too, but it's like I do have a feeling, my feeling is as an American, I would love to see as much as possible that we find what we do all have in common as Americans and to respect the office as much as we can, because if we as Americans, whether Donald Trump or Joe Biden is in, the White House or whatever, if we can respect the office, and just have respect in general, what I see in social media, we will have a better society, to finish my sentence. Like social media has taken so much social grace away from our society. And you say things on social media to a stranger that if you were face to face, if we met each other and shook hands and we're sitting down and have coffee together, you would never say that to my face, but you will rip a stranger with false facts if you need them or whatever. This deal about if you want to, some entertainment, try reading some of the comments on that simple paragraph that I put up about Cole brings plenty. And you have some people just hating each other from different viewpoints. None of those people were there. And then, and even like, if you want to dig into it, some of the allegations, there are inconsistencies, oh, he broke into a second story apartment. Oh, actually, she lives on the first story. Like, I don't know what the truth is. I wasn't there. So therefore, I'm not going to pretend to be the judge. All I know is you need to find this kid. He might be scared to death. He might be starving to death. He might be dead. He might be innocent. We don't know. But
I agree. But the nuts and bolts of it, here's the thing. You talk about reading the negative comments, that feeds the algorithm. That's what I'm saying. Is every time you click on something, you are indirectly promoting it, everybody. Right? When you read the negative comments, it goes out there and says all of Tommy Joe's friends, if he's interested in it, are probably interested in this negative comment. Then it gets pushed, right? So that's the way that social media work. We need to be careful what we put our finger on. I said this the other day. You talk about the power of the tongue, and we spew evil, and the Bible talks about the power of the tongue. Well, isn't it interesting that now it's the power of the thumbs? How often do people on social media and on texts send stuff that they're very, because it's just as bad, it's just as harmful, it's probably worse because it has no context. It is worse. Then that's why I always like to talk to somebody. If I get into an argument or a problem with someone, I want to have a face-to-face. I want to read the social indexes. I want to talk about this. I don't want to text about this, right? Because there's no tone. So I think please understand, I believe there's
I
really
agree, but I
evil
mean,
power in
you
the
and I
thumbs now,
often, over the
right?
course of the
Just like
last however long we've known each other, 30 plus years, whatever, we might see two sides to something or whatever it is, but we could respectfully have a conversation about it. And we do not walk away going, what a dumbass. It's like, oh, I didn't ever think of that. That's interesting. And you might know a fact that I didn't know. And I appreciate the information. Everybody in America is entitled to an opinion, but it's like when Brandon Collins won the barrel race at the American, and the whole narrative was negative, hateful. He's a homo. It was all bullshit. It wasn't true. And then when you have the whole conversation was changed
right.
by the willingness of the Sherry Serbies and the Haley Kinsels and Lisa Lockhart's to step forward, Brittany Posey Tanazi, to step forward and say, no, this guy's worked as hard as anybody. He deserves this. He and that horse are spectacular, and we're so proud of them. And then people, it's like the facts diffused all the hatred, but the hatred was based on 100% misinformation. And not to mention the fact that when you have Jordan Briggs's husband in the grandstands being pushed and accosted for clapping for him and called a fag. I mean, really? Are we not better than that as Americans? We are better than that.
Oh, I don't know. There's a lot of stupid people that get to vote, Kendra.
There's a lot of trolls out there.
And it's all about getting noticed. That's also right. I see so many people push stuff that I don't know that they, and I'm not
No,
saying you do this,
no, I'm
Kendra.
not.
I'm not even, so don't attack me on this. But people push things because they want clicks. And even personally, personal, like individuals, right? They because now, especially in the younger generation, I think the nicer thing about those of us that are a little older
Same,
is that
same.
my identity is not wrapped up in social media. I could care less. I just, but the younger people, I mean, I remember I was almost blown away when one of my boys said, "Well, I'm going to ask this girl out to prom." I said, "Good.
Okay,
I'm going to text her." I
that's
said,
and
"What?
that's a
Like,
whole our
seriously?"
social graces that were mentioned earlier in this conversation, that's a whole other thing. It scares me to death that, remember when I'm a kid, um, there's a phone on the wall in our kitchen, and if a boy wanted to call our house, he knew my dad was going to answer that phone. And then he had to say, "Hello, Dr. Santos," and, "Is Kendra home?" or whatever. And then, by the way, my entire family is sitting there listening to me on the other end of the line, scared to death and shy and being like, "Oh, hi." But it was like, that was a much more civil time. And now here's something,
Hmm.
when we're talking about the thumbs and everything, and the loss of or civility, there are way more people in our rodeo world that are on social apps or whatever you want to say than you might want to know. And what scares the heck out of me for them is not only are you not going to find your wife on freaking Tinder, but remember when a few short years ago during the NFR, there was a very big problem with, people were, hiring a lady of the evening and waking up without a freaking kidney the next morning. So it's flat scary. And I just, it's like, can't we go back? There were some things, progress is amazing in so many parts of our society. When I first blew my knee out goat tying, I was in a hip to toe cast for a year. Now, when I had the second surgery, I woke up with my knee spinning on a machine and immediately was weight bearing. Like, there's so much that has evolved in the positive. But when it comes to our social media is shipwrecking, the old fashioned courting of people. You want to find your soulmate, you're probably going to need it the old fashioned way, right? I mean, that seems a little bit more, I give you much better chances of meeting a soulmate than on Tinder or Grindr or whatever the hell they're called. I don't even know. But I mean, it's scary to me for men or women to do something like that. That's so scary. You're going to meet a stranger.
Well, here's what I found that just blew me away. Over 60% of the kids in the US between 8 and 17 have social media accounts. Are you 8 years old to 17? Over half of all the kids in this country have a social media platform.
Not if you've
And
ever
your
been
What's
phone
forwarded
and
wrong
your
now.
with
phone is
you?
programmed
Yeah, what's
to
wrong with you,
make
parents?
you
Well,
Come
addicted to
on.
screen time.
And when you're 8 to
Right.
17, that's
Right.
when you're creating your boundaries, right? So if you start to think about this, you don't have to have a big giant case study on this. You've got someone 8 to 17 that happens to
Right.
click on something that then gets fed it. No wonder that we have these kids that are so messed up and
Right.
and and
Right.
look at guns and all this horrible stuff that we have
Right. And I
happening
think
because
about
they've been
our
fed it
childhood,
since they
and
were
and
8
like,
years
we
old.
went out to play
well,
and, running around our neighborhood playing kick the can and football and whatever else, but I learned so much about life and handling adversity and friendship and all these things from all the boys, in our neighborhood. The Halsteads and the Farwells, I was always the only girl, but it's like we were out there, summer nights out there playing, all the games, whatever, running around wild. But that was, to me, that's far better than these kids locked up in their bedrooms looking at God knows what, and they're addicted to it, and they do it on purpose. It is crack.
It's crack. Yeah, Joe Rogan said the phone is crack for America and for the world. He's right. He's right. It is crack cocaine, and I mean, we can all three of us can sit here and have actually can say, yeah, there's been times I've been an addicted user of the phone. Greg, what are you're
Well,
trying to chime
yeah, I
in?
was going to try to chime in. So in Florida recently, they have banned
Oh,
social media for kids under 14.
How do you do that?
Well, it's
How do you
they
do that?
put it on the the Facebooks and the Instagrams and stuff like that. But they technically it's illegal for a kid
and I
under
know
14 to
kids lie
have a
about their
social media
age,
account now. And even if you're
right? They're
oh yeah,
trying.
I mean it's
Yeah.
so easy, but at least it's a start, right? And then even if you're over 14, you have to get a parent's permission. They have to
Yes.
sign off on it.
Yes.
So,
Well,
and
it all goes back to parenting,
yeah.
right?
And it all goes back to also if these guys are going to respect it too, these companies. I mean, I'm sure it's easy enough for them to look at a account, see what they're looking at, and give a pretty good idea of what the age of the user is, just because they have all that data. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to see if it goes through, if it works, and it'll probably be
But
another
I do agree.
generation
I
before
think
we
with
even
what you
see
were
if that
starting to
has
say
any
about
kind
the
of effect
parenting,
on it.
Tommy Joe, is that you know, families have historically been the backbone of America, and to me, part of the problem, which we're getting off here, but um, what kids really need is their family, right? And they need the guidance from their parents and to be taught. And let's no phones at the table. And when we grew up, and it was like every morning we sat down as a family for breakfast, we sat down as a family for dinner, we talked about the day's events. This is part of our humanity. And now, I mean, how many kids have that? Sad.
They don't. It's funny to me though. Oh, TikTok. So now TikTok is terrible. It's China. Look, people, it's the same platform, right? It's not any different than any of the others. I mean, again, we're going to probably get feedback on this, but the truth is, it's all in the way you use. These things are really great assets. It's no different than a gun. A gun is a great asset unless used incorrectly, right? Same thing with Facebook, and we're probably running long. So let's go around the table and kind of sum this up. Each one of us kind of give a final thought on our point of view, which is, and this is rodeo. So if you're listening to this, well, what are these guys? Well, it is. Just like Kendra said, you look at the American, we can name you 100 in the last year that we've talked about of social media thumb warriors out there with misinformation that were uneducated, that were saying dumbass things that they had no business saying, that someone was sharing. That's the key I want. Someone shared it. Someone clicked on it. That's what pushes this crap, not just the person that misrepresents, but the fact that we click on it, even if we just are wondering, this is juicy. Well, by the way, you're helping that spread. So, Greg, go first. Wrap up your thought on this, and then we'll end with the smartest person of
Yeah,
all of us here.
it's social media. It could be the generation. I started when Facebook first started. I was all on board, but as it's sitting in the feed and scrolling through it and just kind of saying, what is this stuff? I thought social media was to connect with people, not be a news and an opinion based type thing. It was to me, it was supposed to be like, hey, catch up with your friends, see what they're doing, and it's kind of blown up way bigger than that now. And unfortunately it is now something that we have to use a little bit because that's how we promote our podcast, right, is through Facebook and Instagram. And it has become it's embedded in our lives now, and we just as people, you just have to realize that what you see on it is not you know facts. You just have to read each thing and understand that that could be some guy in a basement somewhere just pounding out his opinion on something. So it's you really have to kind of take it for a grain of salt, look at it, understand where it's coming from, and use it to, use it safely and effectively, and not just, you know be the bad guy, be the troll. Don't get on there and start throwing hate around, because we don't need that in this world today.
I just feel, every single one of us needs to be
Final answer,
accountable for
Kendra?
ourselves in general, and including on social media. So if we could follow like the simple rules of like stick to the facts. If you don't know what you're talking about, do not state something as fact. Stick to the facts and be kind. How about you, before you say something hateful, perhaps you could consider, what if this was my family? What if this was my brother, my sister, my son, my daughter, my mother, my father? You know, the Brings Plenty family, regardless of the circumstances, they're living in hell right now. This kid's been missing for the better part of a week. And, when I read what this kid's dad is saying, this is what Uncle Mo is saying. It's like, this is out of character for him. He would know if he was in trouble, he needs to be held accountable. This is out of character, whatever it is. But the bottom line is, the facts are the facts, and we really don't have very many here. So if you don't know what you're talking about, check yourself, maybe, stay out. It's fine if you get off on, reading whatever it is, searching around and looking for scoops or whatever it is, but don't pretend to be an authority on something if you don't know what you're talking about. That's fair. I mean, we should all be accountable personally for not spreading false information.
Well, believe it or not, your opinion is your opinion. And frankly, it doesn't matter. Only to you, right? What really matters is the truth. And the truth is so hard to find. And we will hopefully find out the truth in this particular situation. But, the truth is, I say I say this to people all the time. Just don't lie, right? You don't have to don't lie, don't even skirt it. Again, well, it was kind of a little white lie. Well, the little white lies lead to real lies. They just do. Uh, if a kid's like, well, I didn't exactly do that. Well, no. Yeah, the truth is hard, cold, and real. It's real, and it's fact based. And all of us need to stop spewing op-eds. It's like a social op-ed hour. And honestly, I don't really care in your particular opinion. I care about collective opinion, right? Because that's the way our country works. It's collective. If it's but I don't know. I'm with you. I agree with everything you said, Kendra. I'm not. I agree. The young man needs to be found. The truth. Wouldn't it be nice? I keep saying this. If someone just posted, like, if there was the opportunity, I could go somewhere and it just told me the facts. Maybe some of our listeners have found something that's just the facts. I don't want to know what your opinion is on the barge hitting the bridge. The guys could be drunk, the power could went out, but the truth is it hit the bridge. Scary stuff going on there. I don't care about all of the drama that you want to weave in there. I want to know the facts. One of the facts I found out is they didn't interview the drivers for 3 days. What? Like, that's a fact I want to know. You literally did not talk to the dudes driving the boat for 3 days after they hit a bridge? That's a fact I want to know. So, okay. Well, we want to thank all of you for listening. We did kind of go off the rails a little bit. Remember, we are rodeo based. We tell you what we think. You don't have to agree with us. We hope you listen. And we hope that you give us feedback. If you don't agree with us, because we want the stuff we say, we actually want to do. We want to look at all sides of these discussions. So in doing that, Greg, if you'll remind everybody how to give us feedback, we might not agree with you, but that's okay. Kendra,
Oh,
don't
there
you
are,
believe that
you
it's the
know, everyone is
discussion that
entitled to
matters,
an opinion,
right?
and the more facts, the better. And then, you know, have the facts, have the conversations. That's who we are. That's who our society is supposed to be. You know, let's all sit down at the dinner table and talk about like what's going on in the world and what's going on in rodeo and what's going on, you know, but let's keep it to the facts and not conspiracy theories or whatever else, you know. So, but again, holding ourselves personally accountable is where we can start.
I agree. That's it. Greg, no spinners. You can,
You can
if you have comments on this, go do this.
yeah.
Do what he said.
So yeah, you can text us at 817-668-2395, or you can shoot us an email at nospinfeedback@gmail.com.
Well, this has been episode 24. Do yourself a favor. Think about holding yourself accountable. Think about the stuff we say. Contemplate perception is reality. So when you say something, how someone takes it matters. It matters. And we often don't think about all the audiences, especially on social media, what we're saying, what kind of impact that could be having on someone's life. Do me a favor, pause a little bit, contemplate what your actions are doing to someone else. And that just, all we're saying is, let's try to be better humans. We've got it in us. We love all you. Thanks, No Spinners. We'll see you in 2 weeks. It'll fly by. Be safe, be sound, do the right thing. I'm Tommy Joe Lucia for Kendra Santos and Greg Teagarden. We'll see you in 2 weeks.